This program is brought to you by the Stanford Humanities Center. For more information, please visit us at shc.stanford.edu.
The Writing Rights Project is an effort to look again at one of the most famous documents in European history, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. The French Revolution is the first declaration of rights of man and of the citizen that is meant to apply to all human beings in all places. And that really is the agenda of modern politics for 2 centuries. Our ambition is to use the digitization and the visualization to try to look at this literally in a new way. What's interesting about this for a historian is to see how precisely we can track a kind of decision-making that ends up with a truly remarkable and profoundly influential document.
When you take letters and read them, whether it's online in an online archive or you're sitting in a dusty archive, going through boxes of letters, that's an entirely different experience than being able to see them plotted as data points on a map. It's not that one experience is better than the other, it's just that it gives you new insights, a new way of looking at the material to provoke new questions.
My colleague, Dan Edelstein, and I had this shared interest in textual analysis and also in the whole tradition of rights and the nature of rights in the Enlightenment. And so we just thought it would be an interesting idea to see if we could think about the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen in this way and see how the language flowed from the draft declarations into the eventual text.
One of the things that we've been doing is Keith Baker and Dan Edelstein will work through the assembly discussions and capture the kind of controversy that's going on in the back and forth discussion. And they write that down in a Word document. So it's a bunch of prose that they've parsed, and they look at a proposal, an amendment, a rebuttal, that sort of thing. We collect all of these different events, put this into a table with all kinds of detailed information about it, and simply by doing that, we've already effectively constructed a visualization.
One of the things we propose to do is to animate the process by which these articles are reformulated. We can animate that and show the way in which each set of words enters into the text or drop out as a result of the discussion.
We started with Writing Rights, just printing out all of the draft projects that went into the final articles, and printing them out and then sitting around a table and going through them line by line with Dan and Keith to find things that were of interest.
What's interesting here, for example, is that this whole set of articles here from the draft layer discussion simply gets thrown out. Then they have this article here, 3 articles, which become Article 6, which is perhaps the most famous, well, the most famous article of the Declaration of the Rights of Man is this one. Men are born and remain free and equal in their rights. Social distinctions can only be found on common utility.
Writing Rights came about out of a just really fortuitous meeting with a design team from the University of Technology at Sydney. They came right at a time when we were working within Humanities plus Design and trying to build this part of the program which puts design faculty in particular into collaboration with our humanities faculty. The reason we saw a need to do that is the beginnings of Humanities plus Design were really in Mapping Republic of Letters project. From the early stages of Mapping Republic of Letters, we knew that we wanted to be visualizing data.
That's really one of the reasons why Kate and I came to CESTA, because They were thinking about the limits of visualization.
The kinds of visual explorations that the designers started with was, for example, taking all of the draft declarations and running the text together and then lining them up and connecting them on a single center point. And what that did for Keith Baker, for example, never having seen this before, was to say, all of a sudden you can see all of these draft declarations in context. You see that some are much, much longer than others. Some are long, some are short. One example is this one, which at a distance looks like an audio signal, which is really appropriate because each one of these bars that you see represents one of the draft declarations or one of the projects that was submitted in hopes of becoming, the final declaration. This is an alignment of this term, la volonté générale, so the general will, finding that within all of those different draft declarations and then giving it the context of the sentence. So, several words on either side and aligning all just on that term so you can see what came before and after. Since we can zoom in and see the text, we can see these suggested articles, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. And we can take that information and then compare it to what ends up being the final completed 17 articles. Find individual words or phrases, find those threads throughout these previous draft documents.
Visual language can allow for complexity, it can allow for difference.
We're informing design in a way that I think is going to have really, really long-term effects on the sorts of tools that humanities scholars end up using. That's what we mean about injecting humanities thinking into design. And I think it's going to make these sorts of tools that are commonly used more beneficial for society in general, because we're thinking about building digital tools that are actually informed by content and informed by a kind of human scale way of relating to information.